Hello everyone and welcome to Blogger and Everything and welcome back to the channel and welcome to one of the specials that I had promised you guys. That's right, if you're listening to this, you can only be listening to this on the YouTube channel actually because it's not going to be on the podcast, although it's kind of in the podcast already. So I promised that I would talk for a little bit about two players in particular, a little bit like my Curious Case series, and like how in the past we talked about Ansu, Busquets, and finding a replacement for him, as well as Frankie de Jong. Well, this time around I'm talking about Robert Lewandowski, and it's a question of whether or not Robert Lewandowski is a waste man. At FC Barcelona, hoodwinked themselves, is Robert Lewandowski now past it? These are all questions that are coming from the fact that since the turn of the year, really, to be honest, although for some people they say maybe since as far back as just before the World Cup break, Robert Lewandowski has been on the downturn. Yeah, that's the narrative. That he's not been playing well at all because, let's be honest, during the past 4 months, he hasn't exactly scored so many goals, at least not as many as certain people believe that he should have scored at this point. So, looking at that, I just said it to be like, okay, why don't we take a look at, statistically, what exactly is happening? Is it true that he is not as good as he was at the start of the season? Is it true that he's fallen off? Is this kind of how he's been as well during his time with the Bundesliga? And that's where I decided to start. So I looked at some of Robert Lewandowski's stats since he turned 30. What was he doing in the Bundesliga? What was his record like? And how does it compare with what his record is currently like in La Liga? The metrics that I was looking at in particular were scoring frequency, big chances missed, expected goals, his shots on target per game, as well as his goal conversion. When we start with scoring frequency, it looks like there is quite a bit to the theory that he's fallen off, because in his last 3 seasons in the Bundesliga, his scoring frequency was in 2019-20, every 81 minutes he was scoring a goal. In 2020-2021, every 60 minutes he was scoring a goal. And in 2021-2022, every 84 minutes he was scoring a goal. Whereas this season, his scoring frequency is every 115 minutes. So, there's a big discrepancy there, right? Looking about a third of a game. So he's scoring less often in as far as, the scoring frequency is concerned. When we move on from there, though, and look at his goal conversion, and we start once again in 1920, it's at 25%. In 2020-21, it's at 30%. And in 21-22 last season, it was at 22%. And this season, it's at 18%. So we're looking at what is really not such a big shift in as far as goal conversion is concerned, right? I mean, a high of 30%, sure, that was a freak season. That's the season he scored 41 goals in, something he's not done prior or since. Last season when he scored 35, his goal conversion was at 22%. And what's even more telling, though, is looking at his big chances missed. In his highest scoring season, where he scored 41 goals, he missed 25 big chances. That's across the whole season in the league. Last season, when he scored 35, he missed 32 big chances. And in the 2019-2020 season, when he scored 34 goals, he missed 25 big chances. This season that he has had in La Liga so far, he has missed 20 big chances. So it's not a bit too far-fetched to say that in that department, things aren't going to be too different from what they've always been. He's probably going to end with somewhere between 20 and 30 big chances missed, because remember his prior 3 seasons have seen 25, and 32 big chances missed, respectively. Finally, moving on from there now to what I think is probably a more telling statistic beyond looking at just scoring frequency, beyond looking at his big chances missed, is when we're looking at his shots on target per game. His average in the Bundesliga was actually almost like a perfect 2.3, because he had a high of 2.4 and a low of 2.2 and then the 2.3 in between. So that was his average, and this season his average is at 1.8. So he's taking less shots per game, and that's also resulting in lower shots on target per game, which when you're thinking about it logically, if you do take less shots, you're going to put less shots on target. You're going to score less goals as a result. In fact, looking at his XG versus his actual goals for this season, his XG is at 16.7 and his actual goals are 17 in the league. So I would say it's pretty suggestive of the fact that his conversion is where it's supposed to be. He's not overperforming like he did last season when he had 35 goals with an XG of 10. He's not at his usual average of 4.7 shots per game as well, which he had in the Bundesliga. And from the few shots that he's taking, he has scored 17 goals. So I think that it might be an issue of creativity hampering Lewandowski at the moment rather than his actual form, because when you're playing with Rafinha, you don't get the same kind of service that you do when you're playing with Dembele, right? Usually when Rafinha is on the pitch, the job of supplying Lewandowski with crosses goes over to Baude. And Baude at the moment, as good as he is, one thing he still has to work on is his final ball. There have been a couple of times, of course, where he's found Lewandowski with a good cross and Lewandowski wasn't able to convert, but those instances are much less than the number of times when he's not able to find Lewandowski. Now that's completely different to Dembele, who usually finds himself in those isolated situations with the fullback and is able to beat this fullback before running to the byline and finding Lewandowski from there. So most of the stuff that Lewandowski has done, most of the goals Lewandowski has scored have come with Ousmane Dembele on the pitch. He scored 4 times since the turn of the year, right? And those 4 goals actually all came without Ousmane Dembele on the pitch. You see that in those matches without Dembele, he only manages 4 goals compared to the 13 goals that he managed prior to that playing with Dembele. So I think that's where Barcelona's issue stems from. Throw in, of course, the fact that he's not playing with Pedri either, although usually he doesn't score from the chances Pedri creates from him, which is rather weird because Pedri doesn't have any assists this season, which is even more weird. At the end of the day, the problem with Lewandowski is not an issue of him declining, it's an issue of the team functioning differently without someone like Ousmane Dembele in that team. The different function of the wingers on the pitch currently, that's what's hampering Lewandowski, because he's not getting the service where he requires it. So he has to drop deeper, has to try and link up from outside of the box rather than wait in the box for a good final ball which he can put in. So that's where the issue is with him. With that, I think that's where I'm going to more or less end. And I thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in. Do let me know what your thoughts were. Did this thing go exactly as you would have expected, or did I throw a few curveballs for you there? I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think that maybe I am wrong here and we are in fact just witnessing Lewandowski's decline and that the next 2 seasons will be even worse and worse? Or do you think that I'm indeed correct in saying that all he needs is a system that serves him more of the ball so he can get more shots on target and just generally have more shots, more chances, more big chances? Give him more big chances to miss and he will score more goals. Anyway, I thank you once again for tuning in. Do have a great day and Forza Barça.